Welcome back to the InGoal Radio podcast, presented by The Hockey Shop, source for sports, The Hockey Shop in Langley, thehockeyshop.com. I am Kevin Woodley, with me is David Hutchison, and because you're listening to my voice first, that means Darren Millard is very busy with something called the Stanley Cup Finals, which, Mr. Hutchison, have you had a chance to tune into any of the first three games? Because it has been crackerjack. Not real goalie friendly, but crackerjack.
But exciting hockey.
Do you know?
Oh, my heavens.
Tough environment for the goalies. I will leave it at that. Based on the percentage of chances that are high danger. I hadn't done the math on the whole series, but like in the first game, it was 47% of the shots Freddie Andersen saw were high danger, and 38.5 on Carter Hart. Like, and that's kind of continued, maybe not to the same degree, but we talk about this with Carolina. Everybody thinks it's a goalie-friendly environment, and from a quantity busyness standpoint, it is. But from a quality standpoint, they had three of the lowest save percentages or expected save percentages in the NHL this season. Freddie Andersen dead last at .868, which tells you of the shots he does see, it's actually the toughest environment. He just doesn't see as many as other goalies. So Carter Hart getting a taste of that here in the Stanley Cup Finals at the other end too. It's been a humdinger. There's a decision heading into Game 4. Freddie Andersen, Brandon Bussi, I imagine by most of our listeners' times they tune into this, it will be underway and we'll have an answer. What's your guess? We're going to go on the record here.
We're going to go on the record? It'll be the bus. Driving the bus.
You think so?
I think so.
Do you think it's the right call?
That's a tough one. Yes. Not looking at it from the specific goaltender or the performances, Freddie absolutely deserves to be back in there because he's the guy that got them here. I just think that's the way hockey works. I think all the players will have in the back of their mind what happened. I know they didn't win the last game, but they sure made that unbelievable comeback. Bus didn't score the 4 goals, but I think that's the way hockey players and coaches think. So that's why I think it's going to happen.
Ooh, that's interesting. I would have gone the other way. I'm not disagreeing with you. I would probably start Brandon Bussi. And again, this is with no disrespect. Freddie Andersen was, it's funny. They finished off the series quick and fast, but he was so good, especially in that Ottawa series. Like, he was exceptional. And I'm with you. He deserves. And I think sometimes we make decisions at the NHL level, or we see decisions made at the NHL level based off safe bets and legacies and things like that.
All the time.
And so that would tell me Frederik Andersen goes back in. But when I look at this series in particular, and like, hey, if you're the Carolina Hurricanes, maybe stop giving up breakaways, handing them out like they're Halloween candy. Like, wait, not to mention 2 elite players, by the way.
Mitch Marner's pretty good.
Pretty good. But at the same time, the numbers are what they are in this series. And I just think if you believe that Vegas has confidence against Frederik Andersen, and I'm not sure why they wouldn't, given that they're averaging 4 goals a game against them, does Brandon Bussi just not represent the ultimate change-up? Like, you could not have a more different goaltender from a style standpoint. Never mind the fact that he catches with the right hand, which
everything's different.
Caught Mitch Marner off guard. Like, he admittedly didn't realize they'd changed goalies and didn't realize the backup caught with his right hand. He admitted that when it came to both the breakaway and the penalty shot, that caught him off guard. But the way he attacks pucks, attacks plays, the aggression he plays with, the length he has, whereas they've been exploiting Andersen on breakaway dekes and quick shots, longer pads, more reach. Like, there's a different element. There's unpredictability in his game. He'd be a tough goalie to pre-scout anyways, but if you feel like Vegas is comfortable facing Frederik Andersen, this would be the ultimate change-up.
It's funny because I'm going to admit to being a little bit like Mitch Marner in this one, because we were watching the game and my wife said to me, because we expected that probably there would be a change, she said, "Oh, did they change goalies?" I said, No, that's Freddie Andersen in there as the breakaway was about to happen. And then suddenly I went, hang on a second, he's catching with his other hand now. So either Freddie switched gloves.
So it's the similar. I mean, they're actually different style, like different graphics on the pads, but they're both true pads.
It's very weird. I looked at the pads and I actually thought that it's.
Listen, the other part too, like I think a lot of people, including like Rod Brindamore, said this going into the playoffs that they might need both. But the question became, as Freddie played so well for the first 3 rounds, had it been too long, and were you worried about? I mean, what Brandon Bussi did coming off the bat, he hadn't played in almost 2 months. Like that was
no kidding.
That was remarkable.
No kidding.
But it also does it not answer that question for you? Like, hey, going in cold and being great is one thing, but he had a couple of periods to sit on it, intermissions, and he didn't change his game. Like, I think the rust element is answered, and if that's answered, yeah, I'm fascinated. I don't know that there's a wrong answer, but I am fascinated to see what our good friend Paul Schoenfelder, Rod Brindamore, and the Carolina Hurricanes do in net.
Yeah, I think the other piece to this, Kevin, is if they go down 3-1, I don't want to say it's over, but it's getting pretty darn close. So I think they'll be itchy to go with the guy that didn't win the last one, but helped as part of the comeback. Interesting you talk about the 2 months off without playing a game. People should not forget that they're, although they had some long layoffs, so he would have had practice time, but typically during the playoffs, there's not much practice time at all to keep him sharp. But here's a Woody type of question. Is there something in the way Brandon Bussi plays that makes it easier for him to come in cold than some other goalies? Or harder?
My instinct would actually be to say harder. Because and it's not like he's all over. Like when we talk about aggression, I mean, we're talking about a sliding scale where nobody is like, we're not, this isn't the 80s. Nobody's coming out to the hash marks and retreating. And he actually plays. I mean, it was the same with Dobich. Everybody talked about how crazy aggressive he was. And like, yeah, he was a little aggressive, but it's not like he was playing with a ton of flow or backwards movement.
No, they picked their spots.
Yeah, exactly. And Bussi played, I thought, in that game, like his positioning was really conservative. It was efficient. Where he's different is on a backdoor pass. Or like even we saw it, the pass from behind the net through the slot line across the other side, the way he exploded out off his post and makes the pad save outside of his crease and still moving in that direction. Like he does not hesitate to cut off angles and cut off pucks and cut off plays. And I thought there were a handful of saves he made as a result of it. And I just think that's a different look. And the one thing that Vegas has done better than any team in the entire Stanley Cup playoffs, and I think a lot of people might be surprised to hear this given all the attention, and rightfully so, on their skilled players like Marner and obviously Eichel, and Shea Theodore's been a revelation on the back end. I mean, it shouldn't be a revelation. Maybe that's the wrong term because everybody should know how damn good he is, but he's been unreal. But what they've done better than any other team in the Stanley Cup playoffs to lead the Stanley Cup playoffs in 5-on-5 high danger chances for is they've won all the gritty battles. They lead the Stanley Cup playoffs in expected and actual goals off of screens, broken plays, rebounds, and deflections. And when I look at Brandon Bussi's chart for the regular season, screens plus 7.5 goals above expected. Like he manages screens. He uses that big frame effectively as well as anyone in the NHL this season. That's how good it was. Rebounds plus 4.6. Deflections around +1. Broken plays right around even. So some of the ways that Vegas has dominated in these playoffs and even in this series, you look at the game winner in game 1 against Frederik Andersen, and yes, it's a slot line carry by Thomas Hertl coming across the middle of the ice, but what creates the delay in Freddie getting out to the top of his crease and being able to track him across is a screen in front of him. And so, Vegas does the dirty stuff really well. I thought Bussi handled it well coming off the bench, and I think his underlying profile says that he's going to handle it well overall, just based on how he played all regular season. So that might be, I doubt they're looking at it to that degree, but that might be one of those things that when you're making a decision, does that tip it ever so slightly in his favor? Breakaways, slightly above expected.
Before we jump ahead to breakaways,
they're giving up breakaways.
Give me a second.
Yeah,
before you jump ahead.
Stop giving up breakaways, Carolina Hurricanes. I'm going to leave it at that.
Stop talking, Kevin Woodley. I know you charted all the guys for the playoffs. So now you said he's this good with screens. What did you see as you were watching Bussi play that made him good with screens? For those people who want to learn a little goaltending today.
You know what? And I looked up the numbers after. I wasn't paying attention to it specifically, but in sort of having done a little film and stuff, I just think he's got that size and that patience and hold that stance and find his sight lines and stay true to it rather than getting low and wide and getting caught looking around it. Like he's active in finding sight lines, but he's not overactive. And when you're as tall as he is, you're able to pick a shoulder and look over as opposed to having to get into your stance And a lot of that is where the play is. Obviously, if a puck gets into the slot, you've got to get into your safe stance. And now you got to look around a hip and find around a body as opposed to looking over. I think he's really patient, staying in the high stance and looking over stuff. Again, part of that is Carolina probably not allowing guys to get into shooting positions with the traffic. But to me, that would be the one takeaway.
And when I asked you the question, I did not intend to be leading to this, but as we're discussing it, it got me thinking about your feature interview today. And Parker said at one point that one of the things he had to work on was overreaching for pucks. He was reaching for too many pucks, and that makes me think about the actual save sequence on screenshots, where a lot of guys find more success when they shift into pucks as opposed to just reach for them. Because of course you reach and then that stick comes out for a tip and there's big holes around your arm. I don't know if you saw something in how his save selection works.
I just think he manages the initial and then there's a shift in. I mean, I don't know that there's a lot of reachers anymore in the game. They're more shift. But again, we're here for that. We're also here for the goalies and the parents that are listening, saying, "Well, how do I do that if I want to be good at dealing with screens?" Probably easier at 6'5".
Good to talk about it.
Parker Milner is our featured guest. You mentioned Parker. I hadn't introduced the fact that we have Parker Milner. And if you're wondering who's Parker Milner, because it's not necessarily a household name, he is a 2-time NCAA champion. He is a 1-time ECHL goalie of the year, a 2-time All-Star, who is probably more commonly known as the Washington Capitals practice goalie for the past 3+ seasons. He got in and onto the bench as an EBUG in this past season. So we've got him as our featured guest because he's officially retired from that position, in part because life is changing for him, but also in part because of the new rules around practice goalies actually prohibit him from fulfilling the role because he played too much, which is something we talk about in the interview. So you may not recognize Parker Milner, like I said, not a household name, even though he was a hell of a goalie through college and even in minor pro. But this is a guy who has stood toe-to-toe with Alex Ovechkin in practice. The Capitals, having 2 right-catching goalies in Logan Thompson and Charlie Lindgren, lean on him heavily for shootout and breakaway practices. He gets into that. All kinds of great subject material, Parker Milner, coming up in our feature interview. But first, we should probably get over to our friends at the Hockey Shop, Source for Sports. Cam is waiting. They have so much new gear coming in, almost on the daily, folks. Like every time I'm in there, boxes upon boxes being unpacked and placed on the walls. It is that time of year, including the gear we're going to talk about today, CCM Tacks, pads and gloves. And if you're saying to yourself, hey, they already talked about Tacks pad. No, that was Tacks Pro, which, thank you, CCM. Pro is for the highest level. The next one without the Pro label is the second tier. But man, has it got Pro features. So we're going to get to that in a minute, but this is a great time to remind you that as all this new stuff comes in, not only do they have the greatest selection of goalie equipment, different patterns, the best staff to help you find gear that's actually going to fit how you play the game or help you out with a custom order, but they also have the best prices. And as the new stuff comes in, there is sale merch from the previous generation. Tacks, of course, replaces the Axis XF, and all remaining stock of that line is at blowout pricing right now at the Hockey Shop, Source for Sports, and thehockeyshop.com. So, without further ado, I guess I'm throwing to me and Cam at the Hockey Shop, Source for Sports, for this week's gear segment, looking at the CCM Tacks. You might be wondering, haven't I seen this before? Didn't these guys already do CCM Tacks recently? We did, didn't we? Yeah, okay, we did. You're right. So what are we doing here? Oh, Cam wanted to do it again because now that he's a star on the show off campus, and if you haven't already watched it, make sure you can see him in the net getting scored on, horse poop technique on a wraparound, but that's what they were paying him to do.
Which means I can follow direction.
That's right. You do follow direction well. Let's see if you can do it now with the new CCM Tacks, not Pro. We're here, not because he needed a second take, but because there's a second price point, a second line with a lot of Pro features.
Yes.
So Cam, and quick timeout here. CCM, thank you for calling your top-end pad Pro and taking Pro off of your second price point, helping us avoid the needless confusion that we have with so many other companies. Okay, back to Cam. CCM just tack.
Yeah, don't make me tack it to you.
Second price point, walk me through the differences. What's the same? Clearly, I see a similar shape, steep boot.
Yes.
We got that sort of Fusion 150V core shape.
Yes.
But do we have the same materials?
No.
Okay, so walk me through it. Let's go. This is your chance to shine. Do a better job than you did on that wraparound and off campus.
CGT. We'll talk about that first because that still makes...
We had the slide technology on a second price point, Pat.
So,
ding, there's one for CCM.
Come off in the eFlex 7 is where we started seeing that. Now, again, continuing on, and to be honest, it's working out quite well. Feedback's been pretty fantastic.
Yeah, we've had a ton of good feedback on this, and especially noticeably on the stiffer profile of this pad in the Tacks Pro line. Again, stiffer pad usually means stiffer materials on the inside, and then you get that sort of stiffer edge combined with CGT, slides really well. We built out a really stiff eFlex 7 pad, and the difference between stock and stiff, it helps your sliding for sure.
For sure. So you already kind of talked about the actual shape of the pad with that 150V kind of style. So guys, with that little bit narrower of a butterfly, you know, we've always been said, you know, oh, narrow butterfly, you need a soft pad. I don't think that's correct. I've been saying that for a little bit of a while now. I think a stiffer
you were ahead of the curve, weren't you?
I'm 150'd the curve. So what I mean by all this is that because of the shape of that pad being a little bit stiffer, you can butterfly with your knees a little bit tighter and still get that closure that you're kind of looking for instead of having this gaping fivefold.
And it's all designed to also be a little easier on the hips, something we heard specifically from Anne-Renee Desbiens of the Montreal Victoire. She's noticing.
What's the reason for that, though?
Because of the knee stack.
Because of how
thick it is?
Yes. Also, with that knee stack, one of the things that we do notice here and how they've connected it into the pad as well. We're getting a lot more of that stability, but it's almost like you have a little bit, and it is, I have to use the term, bit of a knee drive system here that we found.
Yeah, Warrior-esque, for sure. They were the first ones to do that, but that little bit of that angled connection helps reinforce it a little bit, but also just, man, we keep going back to that term connection, but there's a little more connection with the knee.
There it is, connect counter.
Yeah. One thing I forgot, we do get the CGT on the inside edge, but you'll notice, folks, there is no speed channel. So on the CCM Tacks Pro, this was segmented. You had a gap, and then it was sort of angled to where the calf actually contacts the ice.
Lacing it.
And so that indent creates a space where there's less friction. This is flat, so more pad contact in the ice that you're sort of sliding against, more material on the ice that you're sliding and pushing against. But again, because of the CGT material and the stiffness, it's still going to slide really well. But that's one of the differences. You're obviously getting less when you don't have the full pro line. That's one of the things you get less of. Okay, next.
So, still that same.
Adapt fit.
Correct. Adjustable as well on the inside. Nice wraparound connection to that calf. Again, too tight, make it a little bit looser. Not tight enough, crank it down. But you crank down on this type of pad, you are, unless you're really, really flexible in your hips, you might cause yourself some problems.
Yeah, the interesting thing about this is we've had goalies test it that want it looser.
Yeah.
But we've also had goalies that really like this system because they can pull this pad up and tight over their calf. So again, with wider butterflies, and they don't need to worry about it, but the ability to do both.
Yes.
Have we lost the strap from the...
Again, something that changes when you go into this. Again, more of those pro guys are asking for that strap kind of down low to kind of close it off.
It's not here.
It's not here, a little bit kind of on purpose. I'm not finding that as much in that kind of like mid-price point. Also, again, not to say that you should just bump up just for a strap to go to the pro, but that said, some of the differences that start to separate themselves when you come to the mid-price point.
I notice this has boot strap connectors.
Yes. It's got...
Which aren't stock on the pro. Doesn't come with the bootstrap?
No.
But you have the ability to add it?
If you do, yes.
Good to know.
They still have their hybrid kind of style toe type.
But noticeably absent is lock and push.
Yes, exactly. Again.
So more of a standard
pro features
toe bridge
onto the pro pad.
Ironically, we've had, again, on the lock and push, that thicker sort of triangular shaped toe bridge that we saw on the pro.
Mm-hmm.
You call it a pro feature. Anne-Renee Desbiens loves it. So for her, it's a pro feature. Didn't even notice it. Felt like maybe it gives her a little more push off. A lot of the higher end junior goalies that we've had tested are like, I hit my laces perfectly. I don't need this. I would prefer not to have it because it's different. So don't have to make that choice on this one.
Yeah. Last but not least, just quickly talk about how they've, again, angled that outer
tapered.
Tapered, exactly. And all that is to do is to move more material from the pad that's not necessarily needed, help lighten up the weight of the pad itself.
Right, because when you have a stiff pad, and this as stiff as the Pro? Probably not quite, but still
Because you don't have that same rebound
material on the
Yes.
front. Again,
infinite power.
infinite power.
Yes.
Again, you're paying less, you're getting less materials. That's one of the differences. But still a relatively stiff.
Oh yeah, it's
Pro.
quite a stiff for especially a mid-range level pad.
And so when you stiffen up a pad and you use HD foam, weight goes up, and
Yes.
that was one of their ways of keeping the weight down. I know on our Pro pad in a 34.2, we were just right around 5 pounds.
Correct.
So, all right, okay, glove,
Glove.
590.
Vortex palm or pocket. Look how big it is. So plus 1 inch depth, being the mid-range level glove, they can get away with adding that as a stock feature for making that a little bit deeper. Skate lace pocket as well.
But
Great
with the nylon in between,
nylon in between, correct?
which actually might be a good thing, to be honest. Our Vortex pocket in our stock glove had skate lace, and it felt like they tied it a little tight, which kind of didn't allow it to take that form. A running change, I think they're making at the factory right now.
Yeah. Close that glove. I mean, that's brand new out of the box. Nobody else has tried that on. Yeah.
Pretty good. 590.
Great overall feel. That's in cross form on the back in terms of for the strapping as well.
So similarities, differences, just materials on the inside, no D3O.
No D3O. Let's open that up a little bit so we can let everybody see what we're actually dealing with here.
Ooh, I feel like Costanza, like I'm a hand model.
Finger stalls.
Ooh.
Finger stalls. So, not like the Axis XF. This glove's completely different. Redesigned. Much better fit. An advancement in the 590 line. Not something that's like completely different. Still has that same style of closure. But again, that deeper pocket, reduced overall palm size to create that deeper pocket and wider pocket surface as well. Definitely worth checking out. If you've had CCM gloves in the past and you're like, this is definitely something to come back to and check out.
They made significant changes to their gloves. Some were a little hit and miss, but the weight on them compared to when they sort of redid their manufacturing, noticeably lighter now. And they've come back to the same feel they used to have. They've really made strides in the glove over the last couple generations, kind of from E-Flex.
If you're a 590 fan, you should.
This is a good 590.
Yes.
Blocker. Last one. Let's go.
All right. Okay. Still get light core. Great.
Still get light core in the second price point.
This blocker's like noticeably light. You really do feel it right off the bat. You're still going to get a nice hard punch. Again, you don't have that exact same core material as what you would find in the Tacks Pro. No D3O on the index finger, another place to kind of call it out.
Still get that. I love the flex motion cuff. Big fan of the flex motion cuff and the ability to just crank that thing wide open.
So very, very easy to present this blocker forward.
Love that they continue that at the second price point.
Yeah, this blocker feels great for especially a mid price point. If you were in a blind taste test, it would be really hard to be able to tell.
I was going to say, like, it's unreal how much things have changed.
Correct.
Second price point, like, I bet you if I were to find a time machine, I don't know if this is how I'd spend my time if I actually had a time machine. But if I could, I bet you I'd go back, 5 years, grab a Pro set of gear off the rack and compare it to this, and it would be very similar. Do I even have to go back that far? How far do I set the dial, Cam?
Yeah.
My point is, second price point gear has come a long way.
Yes, it has.
This feels like, again, thank you CCM for not calling it Pro, but this feels like Pro level gear.
Yes.
And ballpark, half price, a little above half what a Pro.
Hold the phone here for a quick sec, because the one thing we almost didn't talk about
was where to phone you.
Well, but custom.
Come on, this is a second price point pad. What do you mean custom?
Available custom. So you can change your colors. You can pop your name on it.
You get your name on a second price point pad.
Few minor specs, including the option for a 580 to order at the custom.
You can order the 580 in the second price point.
That's correct. So if you want to learn more about that, you can give me a call, 604-589-8299 or 1-800-567-7790, or check us out at thehockeyshop.com.
Wow, CCM, I was like so full of praise for not putting the word Pro on this, but then you gave us so many Pro features, I'm now confused. But thank you.
It is remarkable, my friend, just how good the second price point stuff has become.
Unbelievable.
Like, genuinely, I do have a little trouble sort of how long ago how far would we have to go back? But I think it's like probably less than 5. You could take the second, and including this CCM Tacks stuff, and put it up against the pro level stuff like 4 or 5 years ago. And it's right there. It's right there. You don't get everything. You're not getting deep 3.0. Cam walked us through all the things you don't get. But to get their sliding material, to get a lot of the same innovations in terms of the strapping, the knee stack, and all the things that have made this pad, and we've really had good feedback from our testers, the glove, at that price point, like it's...
As you and Cam were going through what separates the two lines, I sort of thought to myself, really? Like, that's it? Like, there's a strap that's different? There's the way the toe tie is attached to the pads is slightly different. Like, I'd find it tough to tell my kid he needs the pro pad or to let my kid have the pro pad if we had to order something new. Those are just remarkable.
And as we've seen over the years with our own testing, they're like pro level gear might last a little longer for sure because there tends to be higher density foams and things that don't break down as much. But man, have we had some success with some of our second price point stuff lasting well through a season, even at rep level hockey where kids are on the ice 5 times a week.
One of those sets from many years ago, Bauer's second tier in this case, was playing junior hockey actually, and in its second or third year of life.
Yeah, and here's full credit too, right? Let's give the hat tip, as they say, the stick tap, as they say, to Bauer. I think was one of the companies that led the way in terms of making this second price point stuff as good as it is now. And kudos on CCM for following suit. Make sure you check it out, folks. If you have any questions, check out the hockeyshop.com, Hockey Shop Source of Sports, Cam and his crew. It's not just him. Everybody there plays the position. They can answer your questions about, hey, what level are you at? Which price point do you need? And the other part too, like this is a unique product, the Tacks pad, different shape, the V shape, a little easier on the butterfly, stiffer pad. Is this for you? Is this going to fit your game? So make sure you check them out. Okay. Before we get to our parents segment next, I think we got a little congratulations are in order. Andre Vasilevskiy.
Thank you. Thank you. What do you?
No, you don't get a trophy. No, I apologize. Andre Vasilevskiy, second Vezina Trophy.
Huge.
I got a chuckle out of the way they announced it, hiding in his car and having the drug-sniffing dog come and signal that he'd found something.
Great story.
There appeared to be a little apprehension, and I saw a great meme online, social media, and it was basically all the other awards. We're going to work with your family to surprise you on the golf course or at some type of charity outing. Andre Vasilevskiy, and then they just dot, and there's the John Mulaney skit. We're going to frame you with murder. And it was, I mean, honestly, it was pretty funny, but kudos to Vasi.
I hope this means he's an absolute goody two-shoes and they know he's the last guy that this could ever possibly happen to. And that's why the dog is not,
they had to know very confidently that the dog was not finding anything nefarious in Andre Vasilevskiy. And
he's a good guy.
I mean, we know that Andre Vasilevskiy is a good guy. He is also a guy with some serious style and taste when it comes to his automotive selection. Car in question, I know you haven't seen the video, was a 911 GT3 RS. So yeah,
Woody's dream car.
I mean, honestly, if I'm gonna be truthful, as a Porsche snob, I'm probably going GT3 touring. The wing isn't really my style. I think in your 50s, you're not really allowed to have a wing, or maybe a GTS Targa. Which I have a friend who has one and I'm very jealous of him. But at the end of the day, he's a Porsche guy, so we love that. All things we can never afford in our lives. You need to make the NHL to get those. But kudos to him. And boy, we make jokes about the video of presenting the award. The one I really loved, and the Tampa Bay Lightning shared it, calling Franz Sheen in. Longtime goalie coach. I think they've been together over a decade now. His coach since he got there in Tampa Bay. A lot of ups for them. A lot of cups. Another Vezina Trophy. But there's been some years where I think he deserved it and didn't get it. And to see him share it and go over the trophy with Franz and want to share that with Franz right away, I thought was really cool too. And another sign of the quality person that Andre Vasilevskiy is.
It tells you a lot about that relationship, doesn't it?
Yeah, it absolutely does. Now, hey, listen, we had an article up at InGoalMag.com about who should win, and I still think it was a snub that Logan Thompson, not necessarily to win, didn't make the playoffs. I get it. Some guys don't want to vote that way, but when the voting came out, I was surprised how many left him off their ballot completely, Logan Thompson, and that we see Ilya Sorokin finish second in the voting, despite at the end of the day having worse adjusted numbers than Logan Thompson, also not making the playoffs, and frankly, leading the way for 3/4 of a season and then kind of falling off a cliff for the final 3 weeks of the year and still finishing as a finalist. At the end of the day, though, Jeremy Swayman in third. These are all exceptional goaltenders. I think Logan Thompson is going to get his time as well, and maybe it's a finalist first and then a win. But I thought he deserved to be a finalist this year. So that's, it's not taking anything away from the guys that did. Vasi fully deserving. You can read that article at InGoalMag.com. I just thought that there were some omissions there that were perhaps bordering on glaring. So yeah, make sure you go check that article again, InGoalMag.com. Also, before we move on to the parent segment, which is presented by our friends at Stop It Goaltending, we have part 2 of the Dylan Garon skating is up at InGoalMag.com. Folks, if you didn't see part 1, a lot of you will look at it and be like, oh, I've seen goalies do these drills and whatever. This is not just a warm-up drill. We've got the first 2 parts, and they are a warm-up. But starting with the skating sort of along the blue line, side to side, getting his edges warm, engaging all his muscles, all that stuff in part 1. Now, part 2, we've got 5 pucks on the ice. He's using them as positional targets. It's like crease movement patterns, but not in the crease. That's up right now at InGoalMag.com. You'll see him wear the Track Optic goggles, and he talks about that a little bit. Same goggles we mentioned last week. Carter Hart wearing them on the ice for morning skates with Vegas. Logan Thompson uses them with the Washington Capitals. I know some of the Carolina Hurricanes goalies have used them, Devin Cooley, Dustin Wolf. But part 2 is great. Just a lot of skating drills and a lot of emphasis on his key points in his crease movement and why it matters to him. And then in part 3 next week, we're going to move into the crease. And the point here is that a lot of you might see part 1 on its own or part 2 on its own and think it's just regular goalie skating. The focus here is that this is what Dylan does all summer. His focus, and he talks about it in this episode, why so much of it, all of it pretty much. There's not a lot of pucks flying around and crazy shooting drills. It is all about his skating. Some good takeaways there, no matter what age you are, on the importance of skating. So make sure you check that out at InGoalMag.com. Speaking of InGoalMag.com, did you know that you get a free subscription to InGoalMag.com if you buy a subscription to Stop It Goaltending You, the app? Would you like to have 25 years of NHL goalie coaching experience at your fingertips? Want to tap into the goalie parenting expertise that helps Joey Daccord reach the NHL? That's what you get with a subscription to Stop It Goaltending You, the app. All the knowledge from Brian Daccord, who's been an NHL goalie coach, scout, and director, as well as all the insights and expertise from his staff at Stop It, which includes a long list of veteran NCAA coaches. It's all delivered in easy-to-digest chunks, including 5 short daily primers, weekly style analysis and breakdown videos, and drills you can take onto the ice with your team and coach this summer. Plus, as I mentioned off the top, with every subscription to the Stop It Goaltending You app, you also get a subscription to InGoal Magazine. So check it out now at the App Store or Google Play. They are also proud sponsors of the parent Playbook, which we go to now with our co-host, David Hutchison. What's up this week, Hutch?
What is up this week? Something all goalie parents need. 10 tips for making goaltending more affordable. And Woody.
Yes, sir.
As you're listening, I want you to see if you can see how this was inspired by 2 things you've already talked about on the podcast today.
Oh, I was told there'd be no tests. Okay.
So, she wants to be a goalie, and it terrifies you. The pucks, the pressure, and somewhere underneath all that, the quiet one, the cost. You've seen the price of pads, and a little voice went, maybe she should play forward. I get it. I won't tell you it's free. It certainly isn't. But goaltending's reputation for being expensive is, while not untrue, there are options to make it more affordable. So here we go. Here's 10 of them. Number 1, don't buy yet. Go with the loaners. Lots of associations still keep a gear pool. They now run some try goaltending sessions. Ask them the question, do you have loaner equipment? Your kid can play a whole season and more to find out if she loves it before you spend a dime. Number 2, when you do buy, maybe start buying used. And here's one, treat it like a rental. Kids outgrow their gear, so the used market is huge. Go out and buy something quality, keep it clean, resell it when she grows. Your cost is actually just the gap between what you paid and then what you got back. Make sure, though, that it fits well Don't buy too big and hope she'll grow into it. Oversized pads make it so hard to play the game. Number 3, the second price point gear is excellent. When it's time to buy, as we've mentioned, we've watched these lines for years. They're not good enough. They're genuinely great. And they last multiple, even AAA and junior seasons. Number 4, save on the stick, but not the mask. You don't need a $400 stick for a 9-year-old. And like we tease Woody, the warm-up stick is plenty good. You can go with cheaper lines, or if you really have to have something top-end, go more affordable for practices. The mask, though, is the one thing I don't think you should ever cheap out on. Get fitted, certified, no exceptions. If you really want to look cool, go for a vinyl wrap from maybe our friends over at Custom Cages or many of the other companies out there that beats the custom paint bill. Number 5, ask for the goalie break. Goaltenders are scarce, so a lot of associations, knowing what you have to invest in gear and training, quietly discount registration, or they might even chip in to help you with some training. But you may have to ask. And if money's tight, there are some programs out there. I know in Canada here, we've got Jumpstart and Kids Sport that exist exactly for that, and there's no shame in using them at all. We want everybody to be able to be a goalie. Number 6, use your association's goaltending program for training. Where these exist, they are often excellent and very affordable, even built into the fees you're paying sometimes. Check with your association before you go shopping for private help. Number 7, camps for some affordable reps. Yep, check out our camp guide. Camps can be a cheaper way to bank real reps, and your kid builds some great relationships with other coaches and goalies that are worth as much as the ice time. Shop around for more affordable options. There's lots in the directory. Some people have shorter camps. That cuts down on the cost. Our good friend Connor Lecouve is even offering a free session in Calgary coming up soon. The free reps are right here. This is number 8. Watch the drills on InGoal and then go do them. Like a public skate, drop in, stick and puck. A parent, a bucket of pucks, a drill off her phone is real development. Just ask Dustin Wolf and Connor Hellebuck, who did exactly this. Number 9, off-ice training. Try other sports. The goalie-specific off-ice programs are great if you can swing it, and they're good programs run by some really great people. But you've also heard me say it before, baseball, soccer, tennis, phenomenal off-ice training for you. Nice break for your mind, same skills, rec league price. Number 10, borrow an older goalie. This is one of my favorites. Invite a high school or junior netminder from your association to come help out your younger kid in practice. Or maybe join them for one of those sessions at Stick and Puck. A lot of them need volunteer hours for school. They can get them coaching your kid, and your kid gets a hero out of it and some great coaching. So, goaltending, definitely not free, but it doesn't need to be as bad as the number that scared you. Right size the money, and you're left with the only question that it was ever really about. Does she want to do it? Don't let the price tag answer it. Let her. I'm glad my parents let me.
Okay, what was my
Quiz
homework
time.
assignment?
Quiz time. 2 things that you've already talked about today that inspired this.
Well, the second price point gear was one of them.
Yeah, that's a no-brainer.
And the subscription to InGoal?
You're getting warmer.
I'm trying to think of what I talked about. Here's the thing, folks. I just talk. I don't actually think when I talk, so I don't remember, therefore, what I talked about. So which one was...
A great thing to take to Stick and Puck or wherever you're going to get some cheap skating is Dylan Garon skating drills that you can just pull off your phone and go try them yourself. You do not need a coach. You do not need anything except a little bit of ice, and it is available cheaply in some places.
Yes, there you go. And we talked about the Stick and Puck. I heard you talk about that, and whether it's Eric Comrie or Connor Hellebuck or so many of the guys, you don't need necessarily, you just need a little bit of, what's the word I'm looking for? The competitiveness isn't even that. You just need to have some motivation to go get better. And the tools are there. You don't need to have a goalie skate and a goalie coach and everything set up perfectly and 10 people looking at you and iPads all over the place. If you can't skate, you can't play. And you can skate.
Make the opportunities available for them. We're not telling you to force your kid to go off to Stick and Puck and start practicing when they're 9 years old. If they want to do it, that is awesome. Show them opportunities. Let them decide.
Well, and it doesn't have to be 9 years old either, right? Hellebuck was...
I'm picking a number.
In high school at 16 when he was doing it. So,
yep.
Great stuff, my friend. Great stuff, Mr. Hutchison. That, of course, presented the parent playbook by our friends at Stop at Goaltending U, the app. Reminder, that subscription we just talked about to InGoal that can help you become a better goalie, it is $50 for the year. Free if you get the Stop at Goaltending U app, but $50 on its own for the year. Canadian funds. If you're listening to this from the United States, I'm pretty sure that's 2 large lattes at your local coffee shop. Thank you to our exchange rate, which, by the way, as an adult with a child going to school in the United States, is, to quote the Mulaney skit, and it's murder. It is murder. That is a murderous. But for those of you on the other side of the border, it means InGoal is even cheaper, folks. Like $35 to get yourself 1 year of instruction from us. So make sure you check that out, including, you know what else you have at InGoal? Because we hear a lot about how the goalie school goalies, even the ones that have the parents with the deep pockets to send them to all the different goalie schools, they move well, sometimes as well as NHLers. You know what they don't always do? They don't always
read the game.
They don't read the game. And we hear that a ton. You know what else we hear a ton from goalie coaches, Hutch? What do kids not do? What do they not?
Oh, I thought the coaches were going to say the best way to learn to read the game is
InGoal, but they don't watch enough hockey because they just watch clips
that's right.
and save
They
clips.
just watch highlights.
Which is why we go beyond the highlights. We rewind it. We go right back to the zone entry. What are you looking for from these goalies? Handedness. Where do you take your ice? When do you start your depth? A lot of different things go into it. And that includes this week's ProReads, not off the rush, in the corner, featuring Casey DeSmith of the Dallas Stars, who has been one of the best bargains in hockey since signing in Dallas. Unreal numbers relative to environment, all on a rather bargain $1 million a season contract with the Stars. He's been great for Dallas, and he's been even better in our ProReads. And this week, he's looking at a walkout from a dead angle with pass options. It is a pass down to the goal line to Jordan Eberle. So as you go into your post, and Eberle's got the puck above the goal line, so he's a shooting threat, what is the first factor that matters? What are you looking for, Mr. Hutchison?
I'm looking for the location of the shooting threat, and that helps me decide how I'm positioned on the post.
Okay, so in this case, handedness matters too, and that dictates position. Is he a shooting threat? If he's catching it down near the goal line on his backhand, are you as worried about it? Probably not. So handedness is one of the factors.
I'm like Mitch Marner, though. Like, I don't even notice what hand the goalie is. So, the player is.
And this is why you, like me, my friend, are writing and talking about goaltending and not doing it at the highest level. We are together in that. Anyways, just some great advice on not just this is a situation where he has to commit because he knows a little bit about Eberle and who he is as a shooter and what his tendencies are. But then if and when a pass is made, DeSmith gives himself access based on how he sets himself in that post with something called alignment, and that way he aligns and sets up that inside edge skate relative to the goal line. That was your answer. I know you were going there.
I just didn't give it all away.
So to have an NHL goalie walk you through what angle that should be, why that alignment is important, and when you can cheat off of that guy down near the goal line and when you can't, and why a proper alignment will allow you to live in both worlds, go check out this week's ProReads at InGoalMag.com, and of course, presented by our friends over at Vizual Edge, because ProReads helps you read the game better. Our friends at Visual Edge are going to help you see the game better. Do you want the puck to look like a beach ball? Every goalie has that night here and there where the puck looks huge. You're ahead of every play. You feel calm, patient, in total control. Then there are the nights where you're a half step late. You see it, but you don't really see it. You're reaching, you're guessing, you're fighting it. That's not your technique. It's your eyes and your brain not processing the play fast enough. Visual Edge fixes that. It measures how well your eyes track and process the game, then gives you a custom plan to train improvement. 3 15-minute sessions a week is all it takes, on your laptop or tablet, sitting at your desk, lying on your couch, even in bed. You just put on the goggles, grab your tablet, grab your laptop, and you go to work. It's what NHL goalies use to make the game slow down when it matters most. And of course, you can get 10% off a subscription to Visual Edge using the code INGOAL, INGOAL, all caps, or If you are a subscriber to InGoal magazine, double the discount. Just go check out any ProReads on the website, ingoalmag.com, click on the ProReads section, go to the Casey DeSmith one, the latest, and within that is a special members-only discount code to save 20% off Vizual Edge training tools to help your eyes and your brain work a little better than mine does. Same with you, Hutch. That's why we're here.
Right.
Yes, your eyes and your brain.
Not working fast.
Brain not working fast. Eyes no good.
That discount code is right near the top in the header of each article.
There we go. See? Hutch, see his eyes. He's been training. He found it right away. Me, a little more problematic.
I just remember where I put it.
It helps that you're doing the layout. That definitely helps. Okay, before we get to our feature guest, a little bit of news around the league. I got to be honest, I feel like this is a little presumptive, a little jumping. We're jumping the gun a bit. Not presumptive because it's actually happened, but it's not complete. It is I'll admit, a little bit of a difficult at times to understand process, PWHL expansion.
Oh, I tried reading and I just stopped.
Yes,
I was so confused.
See, we needed Visual Edge to train our brain so we could read the PWHL expansion rules. All I know is that 2 goalies are on the move already. Corrine Schroeder from the Seattle Torrent is on the way to San Jose, and Kaylee Osborne from New York to Hamilton. So we'll see if there's any other changes. It would be great. I think we're overdue. We had Corrine on the podcast like pre-PWHL day, so I think we might be overdue for a catch up there. Kaylee we had on this year, but it'd always be great get a chance to catch up with her. Tough time of year. I mean, when you're adding 4 teams, you go through your whole season trying to build chemistry, and now this is 2 years in a row. First two expansion teams for this season, 4 for next year. That's a lot of player movement. That's a lot of disruption in a locker room within team systems. So a lot of unsettled feelings, I would imagine, as they get going.
It's got to be so hard.
Well, and we're not talking about millions and millions of dollars like NHL players. And here, pull up your life and go live somewhere else and do it differently. I know talking to, I'm trying to think of what I'm allowed to say. But I know that Kristen Campbell would very much like to stay in Vancouver. And they protected, of course, Emirates Mashmeyer, so she's got a level of exposure. But there's a case where her coming back to Vancouver in order to facilitate it from Toronto in the first place to be on the West Coast where she wants to be, she had to agree to take I won't say how much, but a significant pay cut to come here. So then to have the risk of taking less money to come here and then potentially have to move somewhere else in an expansion draft, there's a degree of this that is a little unfair, but as we say often in pro sports, life isn't always fair. And so I just hope in her case and other players' cases that it works out as best it possibly can. But goalie movement already in the PWHL over the summer, much more to follow as we head into the end of the expansion process and then the actual draft. And like I said, just thinking about everybody, because I know we say this about the NHL too, like families and just it affects so much more. We see professional athletes as just these sort of, we put them on a pedestal and we look up to them and those are all great things, but there's a human element to this that sometimes gets overlooked. So we're thinking of everybody that's going through this and going through a lot of uncertainty right now, Mr. Hutchison.
Absolutely. Look, even if you end up sticking with your current team, and those protected lists were tiny, 3 people. I know it's much more complex than that. That's why I dove into reading about it. But with the number of teams they brought in this year, the size of the protected lists, and probably just the confusion over how it all works, there are a lot of families sitting on pins and needles wondering what's happening here for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, speaking of families and big changes in life, our featured guest, Parker Milner, is waiting, as Darren likes to say, in the green room. Some big life changes for Parker, who I think 9 months ago now became a dad, first-time dad. He's a writer, so automatically close to our heart. He is a food editor in Charleston. We'll get into that a little bit. He's relocated from the DC area to Charleston. His wife is a doctor, and that's part of this relocation in terms of where she'll be working. And that all comes into this. But before we get into the introductions and a career that includes 2 NCAA championships and a Frozen Four most outstanding player, some years in minor, and the last 3 years as a practice goalie, I think we should talk a little bit about our friends over at NHL Sense Arena, our presenting sponsor for the featured interview.
They sure are. This episode's feature interview, like all of them, is brought to you by NHL Sense Arena, the off-ice training tool that builds the part of a goalie's game you can't always drill on the ice, and that's the reads. By the way, looking back at my parents segment, there's an affordable way to get some training because it's available now for about $35 a month. Cheap way to get some incredible training all summer long, in fact, all year long. And they have just dropped something built for that summer grind. New monthly summer training packs, a focused set of objectives that you work through each month. So instead of just aimless reps in the off season, you've got a plan, a path, and a way to actually track your progress. Got an email this morning talking about how many drills we've done and where we are in it. It's really cool. June kicks it off with Elite Campus Prep, built around exactly what coaches are looking for at summer camps and showcases. For goalies, that means tracking reads, reactions, positioning, worked through a structured progression of drills. And here's the part that's kind of fun. The shooters in these drills are pulled from real D1 programs. Boston University, Boston College, UConn, Quinnipiac. You're reading real college caliber shots in the headset all summer long. Every pack comes with a goalie checklist you can print or keep on your phone, plus weekly emails, like I mentioned, to keep you on track. If you complete every objective in June, you'll earn an exclusive reward, but only during that challenge window. Oh, and they're giving away a stick as well. Entries come by doing the campus preparation, and you can also get more entries by using the goalie advancement program as well. Right now, as I mentioned, off-season pricing, annual plan, $399, savings of over $549 on the ultimate hockey training tool. And there's more to be saved when you use the code IGM50 at checkout. Head over to sensearena.com and start checking off your first objectives today. NHL Sense Arena, train your hockey sense.
Parker Milner, our featured guest.
Parker Milner, great interview.
On this week's episode of the InGoal Radio Podcast, brought to you by our friends at NHL Sense Arena. Really excited to welcome to the InGoal Radio Podcast. First time guest, but somebody I feel like I've known through all the stories I've heard over the years from Scott Murray, goalie coach for the Washington Capitals, and of course the legendary goalie coach and director Mitch Korn. We have some mutual friends. Parker Milner recently, do I say retired from the EBUG practice goalie role of the Washington Capitals, but also, let's not forget, two-time NCAA champion with Boston College, ECHL goalie of the year, two times All-Star in that league. Welcome to the InGoal Radio Podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I've certainly followed everything that you guys do, amplifying our odd little goalie world that we live in, and so really honored to be included.
Well, I want to get into the nature of the job that you've done for the past 3 years with the Washington Capitals, including getting on the bench as a backup in the EBUG role, and how everything is shifting. But first, let's find out a little bit more about you as a goaltender growing up in Pittsburgh. What attracted you to the position? Who were your guys?
Yeah, that's a question I get often, and so I was obviously a Pittsburgh Penguins fan. My parents didn't play hockey; they grew up in the Midwest, Indiana and Ohio, but I was born in 1990, so that was kind of the cream of the crop for the Pittsburgh Penguins. You had Barrasso and Mario Lemieux and Jaromir Jagr and Ron Francis, and so all the kids were playing hockey. So I just kind of fell into that. Goalie, I've really started pretty much right away. I want to say it was the gear, kind of like a lot of people, that attracted me, but I think from a young age, I liked that it was a little more methodical. I'm kind of a natural introvert, and so I liked that it was kind of, my position, and I was in the net by myself, and I kind of got to do my own thing. And yeah, it was, I played lacrosse and a few other sports, but it was really just goaltending. That was my main thing. I'd go to hockey camps for 6, 7 weeks every summer, spend 2 weeks with Mitch Korn in Buffalo. So, yeah, it was really my life from age 7 on.
You mentioned the camp in Buffalo. Is that just as a young goaltender student? Like, is that where your first interactions with Mitch were?
Yeah, so I got introduced to Mitch through Chris Economou, who you probably know. He's out in the Philly area now, but he we had this little rink literally probably 500 yards from my house in Mount Lebanon in the Pittsburgh area, and it had a full size rink, but then also this little kind of miniature rink. And so Chris, being kind of the wild person that he is, he would drive 5.5 hours on Monday nights to run this goalie clinic for like 10-year-olds. And so he would take us out. There were no shooters. We'd just do all goalie skating. And so this is the late 1990s. And so the idea
That's
that
way
goalies,
ahead of its curve.
yeah, so the idea that goalies were just going out there and just skating was pretty wild at that point. And so I don't think I love that, but I got involved kind of at that level, and he suggested he was working pretty heavily with Mitch at that point, and he suggested I go up to Buffalo. And before I knew it, me and my mom and my two little sisters were up there 2 weeks every single summer, staying at the Residence Inn in Amherst.
So from there, walk me through the path. Did you end up going play prep school a little bit? And is that ultimately in a year in the USHL before ending up at Boston College for 4 years?
Yeah, I was playing for the Pittsburgh Hornets, who actually have a fair bit of NHL alumni now: Vincent Trocheck, JT Miller, John Gibson. So I was playing for them, and I ended up spending my junior year of high school at Avon Old Farms. I was the goalie for what had to be the most incredible prep school team ever. We had like Cam Atkinson, Pat Mullane, Quinn Smith, who were all my teammates at Boston College. Danny New played at Providence. So it was a stacked high school team. And that, I think we lost one game. And so that experience enabled me to make the jump to the USHL the following year. And I spent 1 year in Waterloo, and I didn't really have any college, that much college interest until the very end of the year. John Muse, who we were talking about earlier or before the call, who played in China, he went down with a hip injury late in the year, and they were looking for someone to come on and maybe play some games as a freshman. And so I actually went on my official visit to Boston College in like late May. I committed a week later, and then I was there in September. So it all happened pretty quickly.
Okay, so now you're also at a time when the position is changing rapidly. You mentioned it, Chris being ahead of the curve with goalie skating stuff. We hear a lot about that now with the trend towards Russian goaltenders and finding them. And when I get to talk to them, I find out a lot of them did a lot of skating at a young age, not always with pucks. But how was the game evolving? How were you evolving within the game? Take us back to what the position was like then compared to what you'd be learning in your later years in your time with Washington and in minor pro.
Yeah, that kind of like you said, I was in between two eras, like a lot of goalies my age, and so we grew up in the two pad stack and half butterfly era, and when I was wrapping up, it's the RVH era. So you are kind of teaching yourself along the way as the goalie coaches who are teaching you are also teaching themselves along the way, and so just relying on some mentors throughout my career. I worked with Steve Valiquette my first year pro, and the fact that he was in Bridgeport in the AHL was remarkable because he's one of the most intelligent goalie minds I've ever been around. And so that was maybe the first person at that level who really made a mark, aside from, of course, Chris and Mitch as a kid. And then a couple years later, getting to work with Scott Murray, it really helped me evolve my game from getting away from some of those things that I was doing in that earlier era. An example would be kind of reaching for pucks and taking myself out of position more than I need to be, and really kind of dialing it back, focusing on head control. That's something that Scotty and I worked a lot with, shifting how I move into pucks and just making my game a lot more subtle, while still being active and athletic and doing all the things that I tried to do when I was coming up.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that, like, because obviously this is an audio format, but as you use the word reach, I could see you sort of pull the shoulders and the head back, and it's funny, like we're not that far removed from a lot of goalies right up to the NHL, kind of doing a lot of the way they went after pucks actually opened a lot of net. Like we're not that far removed from that being pretty common.
Yeah, because there was this, kind of thing when you're growing up. You don't want to sit back too much. You want to be active and engaged. And I think in today's game, those elements are still really important, but you have to more than ever, you really have to have a plan with that and be doing those things within a kind of structured framework that doesn't, like you said, take you out of the net and out of position.
Okay, so you mentioned Valaket in your first year with Bridgeport and having him as a coach. Does that mean that you're a two-time NCAA champion, largely coached? Like, did they have a goalie coach at that point at Boston College, or were you still sort of largely self-taught?
So we did is he's a legend. Jim Loge, he won himself at Boston College, but he was from
A different era.
even a previous era to me. So I would say more of he was there to run me through a lot of drills, and I would say more the mental side of it, dealing with the pressure of being at a school like Boston College. I think he was a kind of a great person to lean on there. But in terms of the technical elements in college and even into pro, when I was in the ECHL, you're kind of doing it yourself.
Hey, like I should mention too, like that second NCAA championship, like 19-game winning streak, Frozen Four, most outstanding player. Like you got on a roll.
Yeah, it was fun. I don't know if well, I know that I could never recreate that. It's hard to imagine something like that happening, but yeah, we had a really strong team and lots of guys who would go on to have incredible NHL careers. And yeah, it was a cool example of just getting into a rhythm and kind of trusting yourself and all the work that you've put in. And I mean, goaltending is so much fun when you get to that point where you're not just thinking, you're playing, and it's so much easier said than done. So you try to just appreciate those moments when they do come along.
That's funny. I mean, it's so easy to say all the things that make goaltending simple or make it sound simple, one shot at a time. They're always really easy to say and really hard to do. As you moved through 7 years of pro hockey and an ECHL goalie of the year, two-time All-Star in the ECHL, did you find any tips that allowed you to sort of get into that what a lot of people today would call a flow state more often, more regularly? Any tips that you could pass along to younger kids?
Yeah, I think just figuring out the things that I needed to do to get myself mentally and physically prepared for the games. And I think that's different for every person. For me, the minor leagues can get so draining at a certain point with all the road trips and all of that jazz that for me, it was actually some of the most important parts of my life were getting away from the rink and exploring my passions outside of hockey so that when I was at the rink, I was, really happy to be there and I felt refreshed and it felt like it was time to show up and do the work. And I was happy to be there doing that because I had taken, the time to let my mind kind of breathe and step away from it. And you can't always do that. There'd be some rough stretches where you're just all hockey and you can't really let go of it. But I really tried my best to make that a part of my life while I was playing pro.
Is that where the food writer started to come in? Like it was while you're playing minor pro that you started to, was that part of your escape, your
Yeah.
separation from the game?
Yeah, that was really my main escape. I'd say it started with my dad, also hockey related, but when I was a kid, no one wanted to come to Pittsburgh to play the Pittsburgh Hornets, so we'd be going to Chicago and Detroit and all these Midwestern cities, Toronto, and we would always find, or he would find some kind of hole in the wall restaurant to go to, typically some type of global cuisine, and really got me interested in food from a start. Now, when you're in college and you're just living hockey and college life, I would say I kind of stepped away from that a little bit and was, just being a college kid. But when I got to pro, I realized how much free time I had all of a sudden, and I needed to do something with it. I tried a few things, and eventually I just found that visiting restaurants and writing about what I was doing, even if it was just for myself, was a neat escape for me. And I certainly didn't think that it would lead to a post hockey career.
A food editor at the Post and Courier in Charleston, South Carolina, which is like, that's a big deal. That's a big deal. We're talking to a hockey group, but I'm also from the journalism side of things. I know how big a deal that is. That's fantastic. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a fun job. I feel fortunate. The editor in chief now, but our former executive editor at the newspaper definitely took a chance on me. It's a big position in Charleston, like you said. It's a big food city, and I think she saw something in me and maybe some potential, and I have done my best to kind of make the most of the opportunity that I was given.
It's still a job. It's still hard work, but kind of like me talking to you right here. When you love what you do, it feels less so.
Yeah, definitely. I get to go eat at restaurants and write about write about my experiences. It's pretty great.
Okay, so along that path, as you're delving into food writing, not to the level you're at now, but as you're starting in the minors, you work with Scott Murray in Hershey in South Carolina as part of the Capitals. Is that where that relationship started? You also played with LT Logan Thompson while you were down there. Is that
Yeah.
where that relationship started?
So we are talking about Mitch Korn earlier, and I owe a lot of, I mean, really the last decade of my life to Mitch. I had just wrapped up a second stint with Bridgeport. I was kind of at that point. I'd played 3 years in the minors, and I was kind of, how long am I going to do this? Should I go play in Europe? I had maybe an opportunity in Bolzano to go with a friend over there and was seriously considering it. And then Mitch called and was like, "We're looking for a guy to, maybe spot in Hershey, but mostly be in South Carolina, in Charleston, and help mentor some of the younger goalies." And I heard Charleston and Hershey, obviously one of the great AHL franchises, or really just hockey franchises in North America. And that was a pretty easy sell. And from there, Scott Murray was Hershey's goalie coach at that time, and he had gotten a hold of some of my video, and I think he was excited to work with me, but he also knew that there was some work that we could get to right away. And so I want to say even before we met in person, we started studying film and talking about ways to improve my game. And before we knew it, I was at Caps training camp and just kind of went on from there.
I've seen some interviews where you've talked about that work, and you already mentioned sort of the moving into pucks rather than pulling away from them. Any other things that when you talk about those video sessions and, especially video, like being able to recognize your game already at that level and see things you can change through a video session? Walk us through what's that like, and maybe how other people can look at their own video and look for certain things.
Yeah, I would say I was an active goaltender. I moved way more than I needed to, but a part of the reason why I did that was to really engage my mind. Like if I was sitting back too much, then I felt like I wasn't going to be attacking pucks and attacking the game in that way. And I would say that I'm not necessarily a total natural athlete like maybe a Logan Thompson who you mentioned who is just like insanely athletic in the goal and you can just see it right away. I kind of had to bring that out in myself. And so the way I would do that would be to move a lot. But when you watch it on video, we called it happy feet. My feet were moving too much. And with Scott, we found a way to redirect that energy and to make it so those movements that I was doing less of them, but they were very determined. And a lot of that started with just simple head tracking drills. One of them, we would come in, it would be like a forward coming in, and you would just kind of cross around the top of the circles and come straight across. And we would just work on super simple push, like shuffling with them, maybe one or two steps, following with my head. And we would kind of build off of drills from there. And with that head work, I was able to naturally take my reaching. I was doing a lot of reaching with my arms. I was able to pull that back and start to make more saves with my shoulders and lean into pucks in that way. But there was this period when I was playing in Carolina, and I was kind of an established ECHL goalie at this point, and we were working on a lot of this stuff like in real time. And there were maybe a stretch of 5 to 10 games where I was just terrible because I was in between, reaching forward for pucks with my gloves versus reaching with my shoulders, and I just felt super awkward. And then once it clicked, it was like it just brought my game to a whole nother level. But it did take that kind of uncomfortable period where I was really in between to get there.
And some incredible seasons in the ECHL, as we mentioned already. Goalie of the year, some All Stars as well. The decision to stop playing and walk us through what led you to that decision, and then ultimately the opportunity with the Caps.
Like a lot of players in the last several years, my career ended with COVID, but
Right.
that for me was actually not that far off from when it was going to end. I had realized that my food writing gig could be something more, and I'd actually accepted a job with another newspaper that I worked with for about a year and a half, and was going to jump on with them at the end of the year. And I love the game. I loved playing, but it was those bus rides and not being able to go to a friend's wedding in the middle of the season. It was life stuff that at the end of the day I was just, I felt like the game had given me a lot, and I was just ready to move on to something else. And so, yeah, I really, from about 2020 until 2022, I don't think I put on my goalie gear really once. What brought me back was this 3-on-3 league called Three Ice,
Yep.
which another thing that I've always kind of taken pride in just seeing an opportunity, maybe it looks interesting, and just kind of giving it a try. And that was Three Ice for me. They were holding tryouts in Las Vegas. I was like, sure, I'll go to Vegas for a weekend and put my gear on and have a good time, and maybe it'll go nowhere. And so I ended up getting on a team for this 3-on-3 league, and that year it was, I think we played in 9 different cities, and I was working at the Post and Courier full time at this point, but it was a Friday to Sunday thing, so I was able to manage it, and I had a good time. Our team ended up winning, and it was around that time that I started talking to Scotty again. This is kind of a long story, but my wife ended up in Washington, D.C. She's a doctor. She was doing her residency here. So I was going back and forth, and that started in 2022. And so I reconnected with Scotty and told him that if they needed, that I've been on the ice a little bit, if they ever needed someone for practice, give me a shout. And nothing really happened with that all of 2022. And then I want to say it was July of the following year, 2023, he gave me a call and said, I have this goal idea for a practice goalie. We'd really like to bring someone in. I of course thought of you, and I'd love to discuss it further. And we just kind of went from there. And a couple months later, I was on the ice for practice.
So there's a lesson here, putting yourself out there, whether it's Three Ice or a little bravery, right? Not just sitting back and waiting for that phone to ring. You got to put yourself out there sometimes.
Yeah, and I think your hockey career is not always going to go exactly as you planned. I was pretty bummed when my last game ever was this random Wednesday in Orlando, an arena I'd played in a million times. It was hard, but I think not limiting myself to like this, my retirement has to be exactly how I want it to be, and accepting something new down the line. I think it really led to something pretty special.
Something special is basically being on the cutting edge of what's about to become a full-time job. We'll get into how those rules prevent you from doing it in a bit, but the role, listen, I have been writing about the need for and the benefits potentially of having an extra goalie around a team, and we've seen it. Washington had their video coach for a while, was doing it. There are teams, the Penguins travel one of Sid's old buddies from Nova Scotia. Toronto was quietly traveling a guy for a couple of years, but the role of the practice goalie. I guess technically EBUG, but that role and the importance that it can play. Like, walk me through what that experience was and what you saw the benefits of the role.
Yeah, so the I did it for 3 years. The role was very much evolving, but when I first started, what they wanted was a person to be in the net for the young guys who are doing skills work with Kenny McCudden, who is just a brilliant mind in the world of hockey skills. I've never seen anyone with a bigger arsenal of drills who could just kind of pull them from the back of the brain whenever he felt like it. And so it started that way, really simple. I would do about 30 minutes before every practice with anywhere from seven to 12 guys. And so we'd be in one end, and then the starter or the two real goalies, as I called them, would be in the other end with Scotty and a few shooters doing goalie drills. And so I would just get peppered. They'd be scoring drills, and that was the extent of it that first year, really. And then I would kind of sit and watch practice, but wouldn't really get involved. And then after practice, I would usually hop in the net and do those kind of shots where guys want to stay out and take some breakaways, that whole thing. And then once it became Logan and Charlie the past 2 years, I feel like we really got into this good rhythm where they saw me as a resource for them, where they could be in the net and get the most out of their time in the net. And when a drill got to the point where that wasn't going to be the case, or they had, Logan had some stretches this year where he played a lot of games and maybe he didn't want to go on the ice or felt like he would be better to not do that, then I could just be there to step in for the full practice. So I feel like we got into this really, like I said, good rhythm where they knew when they wanted to use me, and I could kind of anticipate that, and it was just really seamless. But I think another thing about me in this particular role, or someone like me, that was really key is I was never competing with them. I'm 35. I'm not going to play in the NHL at this point. I wasn't trying to steal the net from them or battle with them. I was there for them. I was there to help them in any way I could and help the guys in any way I could. And that was I knew that's what I was there for. And so that there's a couple little things that meant. That means whenever you get hit in the head, or you are doing a drill where you're getting backdoored 5 times, you can't get frustrated ever. You're just, you're there for them, and constantly reminding myself that. And it was easy with the guys. They were great. They treated me like I was part of the team, so it was easy to kind of accept that role. But you really have to be willing to not do it for yourself, and know that that's why you're there.
I was going to say, being the goalie on the other end of extended skills sessions, especially at the highest level of the game, is, I mean, that's you're a target to some degree, but you're not a shooter tutor. Like, you need to be active and engaged, and that's a difficult thing to handle mentally too. Any advice? Because we do see this a lot. It's actually, now is the perfect time. The amount of skills coaches have caught up with goalie coaches, right? Like, it used to be the goalies did all the work in the summer and the players went and got bigger, stronger, fitter, faster, whatever, but they didn't do skill. Now they do skills work. Now they need a goalie. And so we got a lot of elite young goalies that are being asked to come out and be a target for these skills sessions. And we've always issued a bit of a caveat. There is a point there where you have to be careful. Any advice for how to handle that? Obviously your role was different, but you come from a goalie mindset, played pro for a long time. Any tips?
First of all, hit the cardio hard. That was one thing I learned really quick, having taken a few years off, and I tried to keep myself in shape just to feel good, but I certainly had to bring it to another level to be able to withstand the amount of rubber I was facing, even if it was 30 minutes. I mean, as you know, you face a ton of shots and you're moving a lot in 30 minutes.
And you're not subbing out with anyone.
Yeah, you're in there, and you want to give your best. It's hard, and so getting my level up there was important, and also being intelligent about the drills. Like I said, I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing this for them. So if there's 3 passes in a drill, I'm maybe not following all three passes. I want to make it realistic for them. So I'm not just standing there at the end to just eat the puck at the end. You don't want to do that, but you also don't necessarily need to follow every pass like you would if you were working on it for yourself. So maybe you follow the last two passes so it's realistic for them, but you're getting there in a reasonable time so they're facing a shot like they would in a game. So those would be two suggestions, and then the last one I already mentioned. You can't get frustrated, and you got to compete. You've got to have fun with it. I think that was probably the biggest thing that we always brought to it, and the guys did too. Is we had fun. They were working hard, but we'd joke around. There maybe be a little chirping back and forth sometimes, but it was hard work, but it was fun, and so kind of bridging that gap between seriousness but also keeping it light.
Did you ever hear from the guys in terms of the benefits, like from the other two goalies, in terms of that rest on a game day, not having to stay out late because as a goalie, even sometimes as a backup, like there's that pressure to be out there with the guys that aren't playing or the extras or the guys that want to work on skills, but at some point it's at a cost of your own. There's an expense to your own sort of battery and being able to be at your best when the puck drops 6 hours later.
Yeah, I'd say they were more complimentary of me than they needed to be, and I think that's just how the Capitals roll. Just from Spencer Carberry, who I played for in Hershey, and obviously we had the Stingrays connection down. They just treat everyone involved in that organization with a ton of respect. And so they did definitely show their appreciation for me in that way. But yeah, I think they liked having someone who they felt like they could really work on their game with and not, feel like they needed to hold back in any way. And so I was happy to fill that role.
You also, Spencer told me when they came through town, I was asking about the, having two full right goalies. And one of the things he mentioned was that when it came time for shootouts and breakaways, you were the guy because they wanted to shoot on a goalie who caught with all apologies to LT and Charlie, the proper hand.
Yeah, yeah.
You got a lot of breakaway work, I guess.
Yeah, that was super rare to be with opposite handed. We would always call them growing up goalies. So yeah, we worked on a lot of shootouts. I remember Nick Dowd, who's having a nice run with Vegas now. There was a stretch where we worked on shootouts a ton, and he finally got into one in Detroit, and he did this move that he'd scored on me a few times on, and so that was one of those rewarding moments where you see someone benefit from the work you've been doing with them, and no one else but besides maybe me and him knew about that, but it was cool to see that. So yeah, I would take as many breakaways as the body would allow some days.
Is there any back and forth, right? Like I've seen in the summers with NHL camps and stuff where some of the best ones, like the goalies are talking to the shooters. And the shooters want to know, hey, like what is it that gets you to bite, or what is it you're looking for, or what are you seeing from me? Did you have those types of conversations? Obviously with the skills coach too.
Yeah, definitely on the shootouts. Yeah, and guys like Dowder are really curious, I guess you would say. They want to learn more and know more, and so he was one, and there's a few more who would really want to know kind of the goalie's perspective. And again, you're not. That's what makes kind of a practice goalie a really valuable resource. You're not going to go up to LT on a game day and be like, "Hey, what are you thinking when I'm on this breakaway?" You want to kind of leave the goalies alone and let them have their minds available for when you really need them. So I think that's just one of the many values of having a practice goalie available in the NHL.
Okay, so I normally stay away from the non-goalie cliche questions, but I feel like I have to ask this one. You've been asked it, I'm sure, a million times. But in addition to all those shootouts, you got to see the OV1T probably quite a bit. Braden Holtby used to tell me a couple things about it. One, early in his career, he had to tell him to keep it down. And two, that thing moves. That thing curves. He said it's like a slider to your blocker and like a curveball around your glove as a left catching goalie. Do you get to see that firsthand? Is he telling the truth? Because that thing actually curve?
Yeah, yeah. There's something about the way, whether it's his slap shot or his wrist shot, the way it comes off his stick.
That toe hook.
I mean, it is hard to read. And also just I got to do a lot of in tight drills with him when he was coming back from his leg injury a few years ago, and you just see how the puck could be off his right foot like 2 feet away, and somehow he'll find a way to quickly corral it and get it on the net. So you got to see both kind of that heavy side of Ovi where he can really rip the puck, but also just the little things of his hands in tight and his ability to get the puck up or get it around the goalie in ways that you wouldn't think are possible. So that side of him, I think, is a big part of his game today too.
You mentioned gear earlier as being one of the things that attracted you to the position. And gear's come so far since you started, obviously, because if you tried to do what you did for the past 3 years in the gear you wore when you first started playing, you would probably just be a walking bruise. But did you, like, in that role where you're seeing so many pucks, where you mentioned there are going to be some off the melon, like, did you alter anything? Like, you want to be mobile, you want to be able to move, but did you pad up a little bit extra? Because, hey, you still got a day job to go to.
Yeah, I won't go too much into this, but I did end up wearing a second cup after a shot from Jacob Verana a couple years ago. So that was something I added to my repertoire. And yeah, luckily now they have these super padded gloves.
Practice gloves, yeah.
So I would just say, just give me the practice glove and I'm not going to squeeze it. So that was really helpful. And then of course the dangler, like there's no way I was going out there without the plastic thing around my neck. So the gear is really come a long way. I think every goalie, whether it was Charlie and Logan or Clay Stevenson and Garrett Borkland, when they came up, I think they'd look at the buckles on my pads and say that I was crazy. I mean, for me, it's crazy that they don't have any buckles on their pads. So I still definitely had some of those old school touches to my gear.
What were you wearing? Now that you said buckles, you got to share with us.
Yeah, I'm Vaughn all
guy?
the way.
Okay.
I actually used to use a CCM glove up until this year, and then I was like, I'm gonna try this Vaughn glove, and I ended up loving it. I'm like, why didn't I just go with that earlier? But yeah, I've worked with Vaughn in a Warwick helmet. Those were the things that I've used prior for the last 12 years or so.
Okay, so walk me through how you got into a game. You're on the road, you're in Anaheim. Just tell the story, how you ended up on the bench.
Yeah, so I started doing road trips. I did one last year, and then this year they asked me if I wanted to do a few more. They actually let me come on the mentors trip and bring my dad, which was a really neat
Wow.
experience. But the California trip, I mean, when they ask you which ones you want to go to, you're gonna probably pick that one. So this was the last day of the road trip. So we'd already played in LA and San Jose. Um, I'd actually grabbed dinner with Logan the night before, just kind of catching up. It just so happened that it worked out that way. And the next morning, we're at morning skate. I'm kind of doing my thing. Those days, morning skate days, are pretty heavy for the practice goalie, especially if the starter doesn't like to take a lot of rubber. So I was just kind of down there trying to stay alive, and I didn't even realize that Charlie had gotten off the ice early, and so. I get off the ice and one of the equipment guys kind of subtly slides game socks over in my stall, and I just made a joke like, something I don't, and he was like, I'd maybe like be a little ready, and so then I saw Charlie walking out, and his back had just totally gone. He couldn't really even walk at that point, and people, when I told people what I did, I think they just automatically assumed that I was the EBUG, and that so the next question would be, so what are the chances that you're getting a game? And I would be like, they're honestly probably about 2%, but there's this one situation where if I'm on the road and we're in California and they can't get a guy from Hershey or South Carolina there in time, that's maybe the one time that it would happen. And so, of course, it was like this perfect storm where we're 3 hours behind, and there's no way someone from the system's getting out there in time. But now there's this other complication because,
Right.
like I mentioned, this EBUG thing, I'm not the EBUG. I'm not allowed to be under the rules last year and the new rules next year, which we can get into. So it's not as simple as I'm on the road. They can just throw me in the game. They had to actually figure out how to do it. And so it probably wasn't until 2:30 when the general manager gave me a call and was like, "All right, we were able to figure this out. We just need to sign you to a 1 day contract." And so, maybe around 3 p.m., I'm signing this 1 day contract, and then before you know it, you're on the bus heading to the rink. And yeah, from there it was just super surreal. You're playing, soccer before the game with Ovi, and then you're doing a rookie lap and taking warm-ups, and then you're on the bench kind of nervous because you
Anything can
don't know what's
happen.
going to happen, and yeah, then it goes to the shootout. And funny story about the shootout, and this kind of speaks to how incredible the guys on the Caps are. I'm sure and most listeners know about money on the board in pro. It's basically you put money on the board, and if the team wins, it goes to the team fund. But for this specific game, they had put all the money on the board, and they were going to give it to me. And there's a sizable amount of money on there, and so we're in a shootout, and I mean, I've never been more invested. Of course, I want the guys to win, but you see that money on the board, and we ended up losing in the shootout, unfortunately. But it was, just a really nice gesture, and just speaks to who they are, that they were willing to do that. And then after the game, Carbs, which he doesn't normally come in after losses, but he came in and said something about how special it was for me to be involved in a game, and then all the guys are shaking my hand. It's just, start to finish a day that I will never forget.
And a little deja vu too, because it was LT you would have played with in South Carolina. His first
Yeah,
stint
yeah.
with the
My
org.
my last game in the ECHL and my last and only game in the NHL were with Logan Thompson, so pretty cool.
I do gotta ask because you said you moved down to Charlotte and doing the full time Post and Courier. This is a job now. That what you've been doing for the last 3 years is a job, but you don't qualify because you played too much. This is not a role that I think is going to be easy to fill. I've talked to a lot of goalie coaches, and I think a lot of them are scared that they're going to get guys fresh out of college, don't have enough games to qualify, but within a year they're going to want to try play pro again because they've gotten this taste and they're stopping pucks. And did they do it right? I don't want to. I don't want to put you on. Like, is this something you would have been interested in if you'd been able to continue it?
Yeah, for me, life took us back to Charleston, my wife's work, and it's a place where I've been working this whole time and I love. So I don't know if it would have been in the cards for me anyways, but
Would it have been nice
I
to have the option?
yeah, it would have been. And I think for someone like me who never played in the NHL, I did play, I don't know, hundreds of minor league pro games, but I haven't played one in 6 years. So the idea that I would be ineligible, with the thought process being I could step into an NHL team and maybe make a difference, I think is just a little wild and maybe short-sighted. I'd like to see more guys like me get an opportunity, guys played who dedicated their life and a lot of their adult life to pro hockey, and now they get to be a part of an NHL organization. So to maybe limit, I think you're missing out on a whole group of guys who really could bring a lot of experience to the position and do it justice. Like I said, you don't want someone in that role who's really going to be competing and trying to win the net. There's no part about the practice goalie position is trying to win the net. You're trying to be the best possible version of yourself so you can help your teammates grow their skills and help the two goalies who are actually playing in the games be fresh throughout the season.
Did you consider coaching? I mean, you've been exposed to some of the greats. Right back to Chris Economou, right? A guy that maybe isn't a household name for our audience, but we've heard over the years here and all the great work that he's done. I remember Mike McKenna raving about him in our early days of InGoal, to Mitch, to Scott. You've been on the ice with all these guys, worked with skills coach. You've seen it from that side. Is that something you ever considered, or is that just not a path you were thinking about?
I like in talking about the game. I'm sure you can sense that from our discussion. I think for me, the effort, and I'll give guys like Scotty and others a lot of credit. You
It's
got to
all
grind
consuming. Yeah.
you got to grind to get to where he's at, and even once you're up there, you're still grinding. And I think I've kind of done the grind, and I don't know if I have any more grind in me. So I'm gonna do a little coaching in Charleston, with the youth programs, and I think I'll get a taste there. But I think that local stuff is probably the extent of it for me.
Okay, so the only grind we'll be doing is, would you like a little pepper on this meal tonight,
Nice,
sir?
nicely done. Yes.
Parker, this has been fantastic. Way more time. I probably should have checked how much time you had as we go 45 minutes, but so many great stories. I've heard so many great things over the years from all the guys that you've been around with the Washington Capitals, and to hear you talk about how they are as an organization, how they treat people, that rings true to everything I've seen as well. So thank you so much for spending the time with us. Thank you so much for everything you've done for the game and for them and for goalies everywhere, and a lot of good lessons and PSAs in this interview as well for anybody who hopes to follow in your footsteps in this new role in the National Hockey League. I hope this is the first of many discussions.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And one, like we talked about, your dream of playing hockey, it might not go exactly as you planned, and I think I'm a good example of that. But just because you maybe don't make it to the pinnacle doesn't mean that you can't live out your dream in a different way. And so I would encourage goalies to be open, like we said, and you never know what's going to happen next. And so just keep working hard and put yourself out there, and hope for a good result.
Love it. Well said. Thanks again. I don't know how this affects our friend Darren Millard. He's not here to ask him directly. But I got to say, I've heard this from a few guys. Like, the guys that have been so perfect in that role as a practice goalie for a number of years, to have the change sort of cost them the ability to continue to do that job, even though for Parker, maybe it would have been the year to move on anyways. You heard him talk about the job and his wife's location and how much harder it would have been, especially with a young one at home, to be away. But yeah, I kind of see what he's saying when he's like, can't have played too many games of pro. He doesn't qualify because he played too long as a pro, but he hasn't been in a pro game. It's not like he's hopping in and winning the Washington Capitals the Stanley Cup.
Do we know where that came from? I'm guessing it's the Players Association making sure that no guys can get sort of screwed out of a chance at a career and told to just take this route.
Probably a bit of that. And just probably the NHL going like, hey, if this is a job that doesn't count against the cap, could an NHL team find a guy who's a really high-ranking prospect, pay him very well to be the practice goalie, and essentially have an EBUG who's, maybe not NHL quality, but not far from it, if that guy was willing to do that. So I'm sure there's a reason for it. I don't want to be dismissive of the thinking behind it because I'm not privy to all of it. But it does, and Parker's not the only one. There's a number of guys around the league that I feel like are getting pushed out here in a way that, it's such a fine line. Like, you don't want the quote unquote Zamboni driver in his 40s. Like, I understand why the league wants to get away from that in an EBUG situation. And I've been pushing for practice goalies for a long time in terms of, the benefit it can have. But I feel like there's also a balance to be had there, and maybe in trying to make sure teams didn't take advantage of this too much, they've pushed out people who were perfect. This is going to be a tough... I've talked to a number of NHL goalie coaches around the league. They've got a desk full of applications for this. And they feel like your ideal candidate might be a guy like a year or two removed from college or just out of college, doesn't have a great pro opportunity, but can still clearly play at a high level. And as Parker said, I hope they're prepared to put their egos at the door and be absolute target practice guys, because that's what the job requires. And then the fear, though, at the NHL goalie coaching level is that these guys are going to face NHL shots for a year, maybe 2 years. They're going to get a chance to work on their games a little bit, even though a lot of it is the target practice nature. You, as we heard Parker talk about, you can get better through this. And they're going to think, oh, I want to play. And so it's going to be short little snippets with these guys before they want to move on to something else. And I mean, there's going to be probably a transient nature to this anyways, because one of the other alternatives that I've heard suggested is somebody who's, played a little bit, not quite enough, wasn't quite good enough, but is still close enough that they can play at a high level and challenge the NHL shooters, but want to become goalie coaches down the road. So this might be a great transition period for that. But in that case, too, you're going to lose them after a certain period of time. So it'll be fascinating to see.
And I assume it's not paying well enough that it's easy to live in some of these big cities.
I would go big cities. The big city part.
I'm just thinking what it costs to live in Vancouver.
I think I've heard that this job is going to pay anywhere, depending on the team, anywhere between 80 and 100 or maybe even slightly more. And considering I know that there are some teams.
It's getting into goalie coach territory for some.
I was just going to say, and I didn't want to put anyone on blast, but I was told recently that there is a team paying its American Hockey League goalie coach $60,000 a year right now. And it's actually, ironically, a team that really needs a pipeline to be built. And doesn't, just because you're not making a ton of money doesn't mean you can't be a good coach. But at that money, you probably need other jobs. You know what I mean? Like it's not a full-timer at that. So it's...
Unless you're 21 years old, you can't live in Vancouver, New York, Toronto on $60,000 a year.
No, yeah. And this wasn't, it wasn't New York. It wasn't Toronto. It wasn't Vancouver. It was a Canadian city, and it was being paid in Canadian funds, which makes that, do the math on that when we talked about our subscriptions, like 40 US. So listen, the point is,
goalie coaches wanting to quit their jobs to become practice goalies.
That's right. And
not the other way around.
It's so it'll be really interesting. I think like a lot of cases, you'll have and have-nots in terms of how teams approach this position. I'm fascinated to see how it goes. I've talked to a lot of goalie coaches that have a plan, and a lot of them that feel some uncertainty around that plan. So we'll see which way each team goes. And at the end of the day, though, none of this to what a great interview. Thank you, Parker Milner, for the time. We look forward to catching up with him again. Believe me, the mind is churning. So long in the position, clearly a student of it. Great to talk to about the position, and he writes for a living. So maybe we'll see Parker Milner, not on the podcast next, but with a byline at InGoalMag.com.
There you go.
My fingers are crossed.
He's got a lot of great stuff to offer. His first article is going to be how you can handle those skill sessions and make the most of them, because we just like to complain about them here, and he spoke of them positively.
Which is what I told him. We just complain and say, don't do them. So how do you manage them? So well done. Parker, thanks again for the time, folks. We've got lots of great guests coming up on the InGoal Radio podcast. We hope to have Darren back. Although, to be honest, the hockey's been so damn good that I'm here for.
I hope it goes on a little longer.
I'm here for 7 games, and that might mean missing Darren and poor Darren having to go back to Carolina twice more, and a lot more travel and wear and tear.
Poor Darren, it's a tough job.
Hey, no jokes. Have covered a few cup finals right through to the end back in the day for USA Today. Obviously the Canucks in 2011. By the time you get to the end, I know you're playing the world's smallest violin. It's a grind. So, Darren, despite Hutch mocking you, I am thinking of you, my friend, and hope we have a chance to get you back soon, but not until we get at least 4 more games of this incredible series. Hopefully with a little defense mixed in once or twice for the goalie's sakes.
Or not, so we can see some big saves. Look at the positive side of that.
Yeah, okay. I'm pretty sure the cup final shouldn't resemble my weekly 3-on-3 skate from a breakaway perspective. But hey,
probably shouldn't. But
who am I to say?
I'm just looking for the positive, Woody.
I appreciate that you are a positive person, and I am always on the negative side of things. I will try and improve my attitude by the time we reconvene, folks. If you want to improve your attitude towards goaltending or your ability to do it, make sure you check out InGoalMag.com. Get yourself a subscription. What have you been waiting for? There is no better way, as Hutch said earlier, and as NHL goalie coaches have told us, to improve the way you process and read the game than a subscription to InGoal Magazine. and a chance to check out the now more than 350, I believe, ProReads videos featuring NHL goalies breaking down footage. With that, we will leave you. Keep the pads on the ice, the glove in the air, unless you want to stack it. Something, I don't know. Terrible at the send-offs. That's why they don't usually let me drive the bus. For Hutch, I'm Kevin. Good night.